Okay, so thanks everyone, and thanks for joining the virtual conference. Little bit background about myself. So I'm Deepak Shrivastava. I'm Senior Manager at EY. I'm Microsoft MVP. I'm also a Power Automate community super user. And if you guys have or not used the Power App Automate or Power Apps or Power Virtual community, I would highly recommend to go there. Ask your questions. There are a lot of people there answering any of your questions that you may ask during building the Power Automate, Power Apps, or Virtual Agent, and Power BI as well. I'm also one of the user group leader for Houston Power Platform user group. So we had every month we had these user group sessions where we bring really nice speakers, MVP, community leaders to speak about Power Platform activities. My YouTube channel. So if you like to subscribe to my YouTube channel, I'm very regularly providing nice content all around Power Automate, platform, apps, Power BI, SharePoint teams. So yeah, this is the quick link, https://bit.ly.com Deepak Tech. So go ahead and subscribe if you want, if you like to see the content that I'm creating. My Twitter handle, if you like to connect to me on Twitter, if you have any questions, you want to ask me directly, this is the best way to connect with me, Deepak_S22. And my LinkedIn, so Deepak-Shrivastava. Make sure that you have the hyphen because the name is a little common. So connect me on the LinkedIn. Okay, so today what we're going to learn or what we're going to discuss about the Power Apps component. And very first thing that came into our mind, what is Power Apps component is all about. And before that, what is component? So let me explain you in very real life use case terminology, the what is component. And I'll take the analogy of the car manufacturer. So a car manufacturing company, when they assemble a car, right, they don't really build everything that we use in the car. And take an example of the music player. So when the manufacturer assembles the car, they just use already ready to go music player and they put it into your car and they give you the car. So the music player itself has a lot of functionality and feature in it, but not really the car manufacturer building those functionality. Rather, they are using what has been already built and available. So that is the component. So component is what you can think is a set of common features and functionality that is available for you to use whenever you want. And that's what Power Apps component. So Power Apps component is the common features that most of us use when we build the different Power Apps. Okay. The Power Apps can have very common and advanced feature, like you can set different properties. You can have some complex capabilities like an event in your component and what will happen if someone click on your component. So you have all these features and functionalities are available in the component. Some of the key feature, as I said, the component provide you a set of control and properties that can be reused inside the app and also outside the app across the environment. So just to give an example, let's say I created a left navigation that I'm using in my app. What I can do, I can create a component of that left navigation and share it across so any other app maker can use the same functionality that I have built into their apps. Another, this is the component also provide a controlled environment. So what I mean to say there, if I'm using a component, it has become like a master template. So if I created the left navigation component and maybe after a certain time, I added a new feature, what I can do, I can post that feature for all the people who are using that component and they can reuse or take that updated change into their app. So they don't need to they don't need to worry about making changes to that master template. They can just get what I'm doing and reuse of the work that I already spent time creating. Now, so that was the what, a very basic what is component. Now, the second question is why component? Why we even need component? If we are creating an app, I can create an app, I can create beautiful apps, very functional, then why I should spend time in creating a component and then use the same component into my app? So the basic, quick example of that, if you are regularly building multiple apps for your personal use or for your organizations or for the community, and for example, in each app, you are creating a header. That's a very basic thing that every app requires. Now, if you are creating that header and you are spending time creating that header for each and every app that you have, also in each and every screen in your app, think about how much time you are spending creating that first of all. The second, now let's say you created 50 apps. Each app has maybe 3 screens, so that equal to 150 screens you have created, and each screen has that header component that you have built. Everything is working perfect. There is no issue with that. But let's say you want to make one small change to that header. Now you need to go back each app, each screen, and you need to do the same thing 150 times. That's not really a smart coding or smart making apps. So what is the smart way of doing it? What if you just click few button and you just make the same change that you like to do in your header at one place and push that change for all 150 screen? And that's where we need component, because if you have built the component for that header, you just need to make changes to the component and push that change for all your screen in one click. So the amount of time that you were doing earlier without component is reduced exponentially. And that's the cool thing about component, right? And that's the reason why we should be using component more than what we are using right now. Now we understood what is component and why we need component, right? The next is The next is when to use it, because we need to know when the component is required. So these are the some checklist uh, point that I have listed here, and you can think through it. So number one, if you are creating a feature and a functionality in your app that you think can be reused by others or by yourself. For example, you are building an app where you are creating some cool reusable feature that maybe you will use in other app. You should be thinking about component. If you want to reduce the duplication of effort, that means you don't want to redo or reinvent the wheel every time when you're creating an app. You need to create the component so you can just use it what you have built previously. If you want a quick development, now quick development is because, as I said in my previous slide, you created that header component. Now, if you want to make change to that header, and if you don't have the component, you're gonna spend 150 you're gonna spend time for updating 150 screens, as per our example, right? Instead, I can just make change one place and push it. That's gonna quickly update all those apps, so I don't need to spend the amount of time that I was supposed to spending without component. The governance and control, this is also very useful term, because sometimes what happens if you are working in the big organizations and you are creating multiple apps. Now everyone have their own flavor of UI, right? Maybe when I'm going to create an header for my app, I will create differently as compared to my colleague. They might think something different. They might add some different feature into that navigation. But for big organization, the standard is the key. So your every app should look at least similar, or the frame should be same. So if you are using component, that can make sure that your organization theme apply to all the apps that are getting built by different app makers. So this is good. And then also the control. So you can control what is possibly app can do. So for an example, in the left navigation, you can say, okay, we can only have the left navigation that gonna be this width or this height, and you can control that with the component. And the last, that mostly if you want to share, if you have some good ideas and you want to share with the community, that's where you build component and give it to the community so that all the community members can use the same feature that you have built into their day-to-day apps. The next is where to start. So we understand what, why, when, now the where. So if you have not used the component before, to start the component, what you need to do, you need to go to your make.powerapps.com, and I'll show you in the real screen. So you need to go to your make.powerapps.com, go to your app in which you are trying to create a component. From file, app setting, advanced setting, preview feature, components, and turn it on. So there's a feature that is called components. You just need to turn that feature on. Now, app, if you are building app right now or as of today or after today, that feature is by default turned on. So any app that has been built after April 2020, the feature is turned on already, so you don't need to worry about. You can just start creating your component as it is. And once you are in your app, you will see a, 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 you will see a text like components under the tree view. You can click on that, and then you can see the new component here. That's where you start creating the component. And we will see. We will create one component real quick in the next after a few slides. Okay, so this is where you start. Very simple to use it, and very simple to go to the place from where you can start creating the component. Now, this is another very important point for if you are planning to work in the component. You need to understand what is component library. So think component library as a repo or the repository where you're gonna store multiple components together. So just another example, let's say I'm creating a commonly used component, right? What I can do, I can create independent component, for example, header, left navigation, top navigation, or the footer. I can create a separate component for them. But we know that these are the key components for any app. Now I can use one of it, two of it, all of it into my app. But if I can group all of these components together, and if someone wants, they can just take the entire set of components easily rather than going one by one. So that's where the component library came into the picture. So component library is nothing but a set of multiple components together. There are some benefit of using component library, because once you create your component into the component library, you can easily update it or easily update the changes to your component and push those components to the app maker who are using those components easily, right? Now, what component library enables us to do? It enables the easy discovery and search of the components that you are building. So as an app maker, when I start building my app, I can quickly go to the library component search and search for or see all the components those are available and select from there. It is easy to publish the update across environment. So I can easily publish all the changes that I'm making to my component if they are under component library across the environments. And once I do that, app maker who are already using my component, they get the notification that, hey, this component has an updated version. Do you want to use that updated version or not? So it's up to app maker to decide whether they want to use that updated changes or not. And if they want, they can click yes, and it will automatically reflect all the changes that you have made into their app. They can also do on-demand search for updates. So if, let's say, as an app maker, I'm using one component in my app and I like to see if there's any latest version has been released, I can check for the update. And when I check, the Power App is going to tell me whether there is an updated version for this component is available or not. And if it's yes, I can see the version notes, if of course, if component maker writing those, and I can read. And if I like those, I can take those changes to my app. So it's very easy. It's very controlled and easy approach to do it. And again, the version notes, as I said, if there's a version note available, app maker can read them and use it in their app. Now, one last thing, only published components. So for example, like in Power App, we can work on the different version. And unless we publish that app, it will not be available for end user. The same concept applies to the component library also. So I can publish my component, and then I can immediately after that, I can edit it, start making changes. The changes that I'm making will not be available publicly or for other app maker in my environment unless I publish those changes. So it will allow me to continuous development or making changes to my component. And when I'm ready, then only I can publish so other can use those changes. Now, the last thing, the features and properties. So the components comes with many of the features and the different properties. The first thing that we're going to understand is the property, right? So a component can have two property right now. There's one more that we're going to talk a little bit later in the slide. So the input properties and the output properties. An input property that you can see is something that you can send information to the component. So for an example, if I'm building a header component, right, and I want the app where that component is being used to provide me the header title, right? So I can create a property called the header title, and whoever using that component can provide me what should be the title of that header when they use that component into their app. Then we have the output property. Output property is something what component provide app maker to use. So a quick example of that, let's say in my component, I'm putting a gallery, and the gallery showing some data, right? And what I want to do, I want to create a property that for at a given time, it will give you the selected item in that gallery. So I can create a property that will take that currently selected item in the gallery, and that output property I can use in my app to read which item is selected into that gallery. So yeah, so input what component want you to provide, output what component provides you. The second one, the component can be exported and imported across the apps. So like we do the app export import, similarly, we can also do the component export import. This is little known to everyone. Component is currently a preview feature. So it's not GA yet, but I'm hoping Microsoft soon will make it GA so we all can freely use it. But I mean, it's there in preview since last couple of years. It's still making a lot of good improvements. So yeah, it's in preview, but still in use. The another one is variable with a component or scope to the component instance only. So what does that mean? For example, if you are creating variables inside your component for any purpose, right? And I have added that component or created an instance of that component in my app. And let's say I created two instances of the same component in two separate screens in my app. That variable that in the component will be the scope for the instance. So maybe my first screen having that variable value something else as compared to my second screen or the second instance of the component, maybe there's some different. So they just don't go like globally created. They created globally for that component. Very nice, good to know point here. Now, the next one. So recently, actually last month, Microsoft has announced some enhanced component properties. These are under experimental features, so they are not even preview. They are Microsoft has just released for us to try, provide feedback, and once this everything is going to look good, they're going to make them in the preview, and then maybe when everything goes GA, it will go GA with the component. So what are these enhanced component properties? The first property is the behavior property. So if you know in Power Apps, we have something called behavior formulas or behavior property. These are like event related property. So for example, on button click or on change of a drop down or on change of some value, there's an event. So if there is a behavior happening, that's going to call that property to click, right? So now previously, we had only one event or one behavior property that we could have used in component, that was on reset. So on reset of that component, if we want to do something, we could have used that. But now what we can do, we can create a custom behavior properties. So I can create a behavior properties on, let's say, on a drop down click. So whenever a drop down values change, I want to know that event, and then maybe I want to notify everyone that, hey, this drop down has been changed. Just an example, but now I can create my own behavior property and component and use those events in my app easily. And I'll show you if time's allowed. At the end, we will see how these can be, how we can use these things. The second is the property parameters. So yes, we can create these behavior properties or output input properties, but now what you can do, you can also create parameters on that property. So for an example, let's say I'm creating that on change property, but at the same time, I want to pass the value of what has changed. So on the drop down change event, I'm saying, okay, I need to know in my app that whenever the component drop down has changed, so I have that event, but I can also pass the currently selected item into using these property parameters to that event. So now not only I'm getting a notification, event triggered when the drop down has changed, I'm also getting what has changed, the value, so I can use that value to maybe notify or use it across the app. And because now I can do that, now I can create a pure function in component. So till today, or not today, means previously before the announcement of these the extended enhanced component properties, the component was the UX or UI component. So you can create reusable UI features like navigation, left menu, top menu, or maybe charts, maybe header, right, or maybe pop-up. These are all the UX components that people can see them. But you, by using these new enhanced component properties like parameters and outer property, now you can actually create a pure function. Pure function means there is no UI needed. So when you add that component to your app, it doesn't have any UI, it doesn't have any control. But you can use those functions that we're going to create in component using this parameter and property to perform some complex and reusable functionality. To give a simple example, now I can create a quick math function that will give you the sum of two numbers in component as a pure function, and you can use this in your app. And the only thing you need to do, you need to just pass the number that you want to add or sum, and component will give you the answer. This is a very basic example. You can take this concept to really complex scenarios where you want to create some complex processing function that you don't want your app maker to always doing. You can create a function and then share it, and they can use it. Okay, so this is this was all the slides, and let me check the time. Okay, so we are on the right time. Now let me quickly jump on to my Power App. Okay. Before that, is there any question that I can see here? If no, then I can
Not yet, Deepak.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so the first thing first, as I was talking about what is component and how you can use it. So I'm going to show you where you can start. So first thing first, what you need to do, you need to go to your make.powerapps.com. This is the URL for your Power App. Once you open, you can see your Power Apps Studio or browser here. If you go to the apps, this is where you see all of your apps that you are either working right now or you created, right? Under apps, you're seeing all the app, but then you will see something called component library preview. If you click on that, that's where you can see all the component library that you created. Now I have created a bunch of them. So you are seeing, if you're doing it first time, you may not see them. So that's, don't worry. This is where you're going to start creating your first component. So that's the one way. And what you can do, you can start from clicking here on the new component library, provide the name of the library. So we're going to create this library today. We will create some component under that. And as soon as you create that component library, it will create it for you. And then after, as soon as it got created, I'm going to give some time, you will end up to the Power Apps Studio, right? As you can see, this is very similar. And now if you see, this is very similar how we get when you create an app. There's no difference here. So that's not something new that you need to learn to create component. Absolutely nothing new that you need to learn. Very similar experience. And every component library also going to give you the screen. This is for the testing. So remember that this is not your app that you are building. Microsoft is giving you this screen. So when you are building the component under your component library, you can test them at the same time, right? So that's the recommended right way of doing it. What you can also do, I can also go to the app, create one quick app here. Let it ready. I can drink water that time. So this is my app. Now, if you see this app and the component library that we have created, as I said, it looks very similar. But the difference between my app and the component library, if I'm going to create a component here in my app, these components are scoped to my app. So they are reusable feature that you're building, of course, but you are building those for your app. So if you want to share them with other person, you need to go here and export that. Instead, if you are creating them here in the component library, they're going to available as a component into that component library so everyone can see them and use it in their app. So always start creating component in the component library. Very high recommendation here, right? Now let me quickly walk you through a quick use case of what we were talking earlier, that why components are very useful. So I'll continue working on this app. This is my screen one, so I'm going to just rename this one and say home screen. Okay. And what we're going to do, we're going to insert a rectangle here. So what we are doing, let's say I got a project where I need to create a few apps for one use case, right? And the requirement is to have the app is really nice looking, and I want to create a header for my app. So what I'm doing here, I'm just going the classic approach. So this is my screen one, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to drop a rectangle. So I'm just creating a header for my app, right? And I will also drop a label on top of that. In text to center align and make the change colors to white so we can read it. And I'll say this is a home screen. Okay. And I'm not going to add anything here on the down. Let's say we add the functionality, and I have, let's say, another screen in my app. So this is my screen 2, right? And now, because I'm creating this app and I want this header to be in all of my screens, I'm going to do what? I'm going to either go ahead and do same thing, go to the rectangle, drop it, right? And very similarly, I will add a label here. And you start noticing the pain that I'm going through. I'm repeating myself. I'm doing the same work again and again. And I will say, okay, this is my screen 2. Okay. Now let's say I have another screen in my app. My app is very complex. It has multiple screens. I'll drop another screen. Now again, very same thing. What I'm gonna do, I need this header. So let's say this time I become a little bit smart and I'll say, okay, I'm gonna just copy this entire thing, all these to control, and go to my third screen. Let me rename this. And I'll paste it here. Still good, but still I need to make changes to the name. Okay, so far so good. I'm gonna save this app. Right. So my app is ready. Let's say it has some functionality. We are just trying to understand the logic or the benefit of a component. I play this. Yes, my app is looking good, but what I forgot to add that navigation so I can go to the next. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just go to here and then maybe add an icon here so that I can go to the next screen. Okay. So I'll go here, and then on this one, I will just say navigate, right? So this will allow me to navigate to screen 2. And then from screen 2, I need the same behavior. I want to go back to the screen and then also next screen, right? So on this one, what I will say, I'll say navigate to my screen 3. Now, again, from screen 2 and screen 3, I want them to go back to the home. Whenever you click on that, I still want to go back to the home. So now this can be on the header. I just drop another icon on the header, and this will be navigate to my home screen. And I can just make this white so you can see it. Okay, now let's run this one. Okay, so I have my home screen. I can go to the screen 2. I can go to the screen 3. I can go back to the home. Fair enough. Now let's say you spend all of this time creating this app, and you publish it, and then you go to the review of the app with all of your colleague or the leadership, and they say, okay, the app is looking good, but we also need a picture of the logged in user. So whoever is logged in, I want that to be show in this header, right? So now remember this one thing. I was just talking about 3-screen app. Now think if you have created, let's say, multi-screen app or multiple apps. And if someone asks you to make the changes that is actually going to apply to each and every screen, now what you need to do, you need to go to each screen. You need to drop a picture because you want them to see the image of the logged in user. Align it, make sure that it's looking good. Update the logic here. So as you know, we can get the user picture here, sorry, image, right? So this will show me the logged in picture. Now this is just for the home screen I did. If I go to the next screen, nothing happening here. So I need to do it again. And that's where the component feature is very useful. So from here on, let's start our component and I'll show you how quickly you can create that in no time. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna create this header component very quickly. So this was the component library that we have built previously. So I'm gonna rename this component here. So this is going to be our header. The concept of component is very similar if you are doing this in your app. So there's nothing new happening here. And only thing that's happening is the property. Okay. So the first thing that we need, as we have done in our app, we need a rectangle. And rectangle I'm using just for the background. You can just ignore that. But just to make it a little bit more UI rich, I'm just dropping a rectangle. Right. So this is going to be my header rectangle. Right. Now on the component, the width and the height. So the width, most of the time what we need the header to be the full width of the app. So what we can use here, so this is my app.active screen, so that you know this is going to give you the current active screen dot width. So what I'm saying, wherever this component is going to edit, that screen width is going to be the width of my component. Okay, height we can decide. So I'm going to just say my component should be 80. This you can decide how you want your component to be height basis. Now the rectangle, right? So the rectangle also the same thing. The width of the rectangle, I want whatever the width of my header or my component, that's going to be the width of my component. Okay. Now let me do one more thing quickly. So if you go to your screen and if you drop that component, you can see here, right? So this is my component, nothing in, just a rectangle, but quickly I can check if I go to this sample screen and this rectangle is already here. Few other thing. So in my component, if you click on the component, it has a property called fill. Right? So this is the background of your component. So what you can do, you can for now set it to, let's say, this color, right? And what I'm going to do, I'm going to set the rectangle fill color to the same fill color of what the component. So this way I can allow user to change the background of my component. So as you can see here, this is the component of my header. Now the next thing that we need, as we have added to our original app, we need a label. So this is going to be the label for the name of the screen. So this time we're going to create a new property. Okay. So I'm going to go to my component. This is how we create a component, the property in the component. So you go to the custom property, click on the new custom property here. As soon as you do that, it will open up this form, a small form for the information about the property. So the display name, so I'll say header, whatever you want in your header, right? And then we have option to either select as an input property or output property. And as you can see here, I'm only seeing two. I'm not seeing the behavior property, and I'll show you the reason behind that. For now, this is the input property because component want that property to be used to show here. Okay, and it is type text. Click create. And the next thing what we can do, the value of this text, what I'm saying, this is the name of my component, dot. And as soon as you click dot, you will see your input property pop up here. So header text. So whatever user is going to set the header text, that will be the property of, that will be the name of my header. So this is my text. Okay. Now, little bit, I'll go here. So we need to make this change color here. And as you can see here, okay. So this is my text of the header. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna also, let's save it. I'm gonna show you something else there. Okay. So my this thing has saved. And now what I can do, I can go here. It's already ready to go. And now if you go to your screen, as you can see here, this is my text. But if I go to my app and go to the header text and change it and say, so as you can see here, now I can change the text fairly easily. Now, if I add multiple screen here, right, and on each screen I drop the component, I can easily change the text without making any further update to the app or to the component, right? So I can just change this to screen 2. Okay, so this is good. This is working fine. Now let me do one more thing. If you go to the file and if you go to the settings, right, and if you go to the advanced setting, and if you go to the preview feature, and if you scroll down, under experimental feature, this is where you will see those few feature that I think I always enable. One is enhanced formula bar, and the other one is this one. That's okay. And there is something called enhanced component properties. So these are the property that those two property that I was talking previously that Microsoft have just released as an experimental feature. So go ahead and enable that because it's going to give you a nice approach to create those common functions. Click save, and we're going to save this one. Okay, and now let's publish this component so we can use it in our app that we are building. So I publish this. I'll go back to my app. So this is my app. Now, how to get that component from the component library? Like you add any other control and the plus icon, you will see something called get more components. Click on that. Now, as soon as you click on that, it's going to list down all the components available in this environment. So this is all the different component libraries are available. This is the one that we have just created. It has one component right now, so you can click on select all, or you can click on this small drop down and select one or many components are available. So for example, in this one, I have these many components. I can either select one or all as I need. So we're going to select this header component that we have created. We're going to click import. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete all these header that we have created in our screen. Okay. And then what I'm going to do under library component, because we added that, just keep clicking on this. I think I have not deleted everything. Okay, so on this screen, and then I'm going to go to the home screen and do the same thing. Okay, and then for my second screen also, I'll do the same thing. So now what I'm doing, instead of creating that that header for each screen separately, what I'm using the component as you can see here, right? And I can give the name of, I can use the text as I need it. So this is my home screen. This is my screen 2. Now let's take the same example. So I created this app, I deployed this app, and now someone asking that, hey, can we have the user picture? So now I'll show you how easy it is. I'll go back to my component, and I'll go to my component here, and I'll drop the image as I did in my app, right? And then I'll just resize it so that it will look good. And the image is going to be very similar, user.image. So now I have the image ready in my component. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to just publish this one, save and publish. So now my component has that user picture there. In my app, if I go to this, the control screen, in this three dot, if I click on check for update, look what it's saying. It's saying that Power VC1 has the updated version because I just added that picture. What I'm going to do, I'm going to click update, and you will see all of my screens now had that picture here. So I don't need to go individually screen, rather I have that update. So this is how easy it is. You can scale this to multiple app and multiple screens, and you will realize how much time you are going to save by using this one. So this was a sample of the component that you can quickly build. Now let me quickly walk you through some different component that I have built so far. And again, all of the component that I'm going to show you are available in the component library. Okay, so let me start with my first app here. So this is the workflow progress tracker app. And what this app is doing, it is connected to a SharePoint list, as you can see here. It's showing me the different status of the different work item that my team is working. What I can do, I can click on the individual item. I can see the detail. I can click the information, make changes. I can also create new item. Okay, so this app is functional, but if you have noticing somewhere on the top of the screen, I have a like a M365 navbar kind of header. This is the first component that I'm using here. So in this component, I can have this icon where you can add more and more a navigation item. I can, if I want to create some admin level settings, I can do it. I can also have the search functionality enabled here. And some of these features, I'm using those experimental feature. So they might not be available right now or may change in the future, but this can be useful to that. Second, you can see the small button here. So someone asked me that, okay, this screen is looking good, but what I want some graphical presentation. Okay, so is there anything that I can use? So I had built some graph component previously. And what I did, I just dropped those component here. And without like spending 5 minutes and using them in my app without any changes. So these two graph that you are seeing, these are the component. They are using gallery and other features to create these interactive graph. The first component, or the bars chart, what it's doing is going to allow me to filter the gallery underneath it. So if I click on any of the bar, you can see the data is filtering based on the information that I'm clicking here. So that's the one behavior. This column chart, what this is allowing me to is allowing me to click on any of these columns, and it will take me to the second screen where I can see how many are in critical or the low priority. So if I click on the critical, I can see all the critical item here. I can go back, I can click on the medium. So now I can see all the medium status work item. Again, that's the reason to showing these charts to you and functionality. This is very easy to incorporate in any of your app. If you have the component and someone is asking you, can you do that? You don't need to spend many time or a lot of time to making those changes. You can just drop them and use it. Another component that I think you might have seen, the notification component. Power Apps does have a notification component, but if you remember, it opened all the way on the top screen. This new component that I have built, it is more control. You can make changes, and based on the event. So for example, if you're creating an app and when the item has submitted successfully, you want to show the confirmation, or maybe if there is an error, you want to show an error message. If you want to publish a notification to all your app, you can just use these components. So again, another sample component. Another one that I like to show you guys is the top nav. So this is the top nav component. Again, it is also fully configurable and functional. What you can do, you can create the multi-layer top navigation using this component. You can set the link, whether you want the links to go to the separate screen, like I'm sending to another screen, it can be google.com or any other, or you can also send them to the screen itself where you are, right? So if I click on connector, now I'm going to the separate screen. So another component available. Now these are just a few of them that I have created. If you go to the community, there are a bunch of like hundreds of components are already available, though the feature is preview right now. So I would highly recommend the go ahead, go and check them. Now I think I'm almost closing 2 minutes. And before that, let me go back to my, actually I like to show you guys one more feature in the component. So if you go back to your component here, and if you go to the component now, if you go there, if you click on the new custom property, because we have enabled those experimental features, now you can see the behavior property here, right? And this is what I was talking earlier. These are the new features coming in. We don't have enough time, otherwise I would have shown you that. Now you can use these behavior property with the parameters that can actually allow you to create functions and actually, yeah. Simon, how much time I have left?
And Deepak, you are well over 10 minutes now.
10 minutes or 2 minutes?
You're well over 10 minutes now.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Sorry. Okay. So then, guys, maybe next time. So I'm going to just go back to my screens real quick so we can just complete the slides here. Some best practice. I think most of them I already have explained, that you should always starting in the component library, plan ahead, make sure that you are thinking about reusability. Do not try to overkill the component. It is reusable, so reusable things should be common. It cannot be a point solution, because point solutions cannot be the component. So keep it simple. Always remember. Some limitations, like data source, forms, data tables are not supported in component. Collections are not supported. You can create tables, but not collections, right? You can use gallery. You cannot use the component inside a gallery or inside a form, right? Local, the media file support. So if you are using images or something like that, it's not supported right now. Some learning materials. So if you go to these links, yes, you can learn more about components, component library, and everything else. And again,